Hello, welcome to the Safety Moment with the Safety Chic. My name is Ugochi Obijegu and I'm known as the Safety Chic because of my work in raising safety consciousness. In this podcast series, we bring you interviews with amazing safety professionals, sharing valuable insights on different aspects of safety as it concerns you, your life, and your work. This is Safety Moment with the Safety Chic, intentionally grooming a safety conscious generation. Enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome once again to this edition of the Safety Moments with the Safety Chic podcast. And as you know, we are always interested in bringing the best minds to come here and share with you practical safety tips that you can take and implement right away. Today, we have an amazing individual in the building, and we met on social media. So can you see the power of social media?
I know.
We met on social media, and she's doing fantastic work in trying to protect children. Today, we have Dr. Nkiruka Orajiaka, who is into pediatric emergency medicine. So you can see that she's just perfect, right? She works with these children. She knows the kinds of cases that comes into the world, and she knows how parents can go the extra mile to protect their children. As a matter of fact, I would say you must make it a point of duty after listening to this episode to follow her on Instagram, where she shares these practical safety tips in a simple and interactive way that even you, who is not in medicine or in safety, can implement. Welcome, Dr. Nkiruka Orajiaka.
Thank you, Ugochi. Thank you. So nice to meet you. And yes, I agree. The power of social media. There's good and bad of social media, but the connections and collaborations are so awesome. So nice to meet you and good to finally see you on your amazing work you do. I've been and I love what.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So today she's going to be speaking to us on the topic bullying and the effect on children. So I will just go into it right away. You know, currently there's really a rising case of bullying. There have been videos on social media showing children perpetrating this on themselves. And in order to rule out all doubt, what is bullying and what is not bullying, so that all our listeners are all on the same page with us. We don't want anybody to be confused after listening to this podcast episode. So over to you, Dr. Nkiru.
Yeah, of course. I think actually I'm not sure I'm going to say if it's increased or just that we're capturing it more, because now there's like social media, people can record things. So we've always had bullying like existing among us. It's just that we've always perceived it differently. But just to clarify, bullying is an act, there are four things I always tell people when I want to describe bullying. One, it's unwanted and aggressive. Like the person perpetrating is intentionally doing it. Two, it's repeated or is an act that's likely to be repeated again. Three, there is always an imbalance of power. One, it might be a bigger kid and a smaller kid, someone in a higher grade and someone in a lower grade, or one person with more social influence than another. And four, it's an act that always causes harm or distress to a victim. If all these four things are not like completely met, it may not be bullying, maybe just like peer-to-peer teasing or peer-to-peer like play. But those are the four main things you always want to consider when you're talking about bullying.
Awesome. I really like that. So just in case you didn't get it, she has just told us four important ingredients that when you notice in any situation, that is bullying. So it's unwanted and aggressive. It is repeated. Yes, it's not just once. It's
not
repeated.
One act.
Yes, there's an imbalance of power. Somehow somebody feels they have more power than the other person, or the other person feels they have less power than the other.
Exactly.
And of course, it causes harm or distress to the other person. So again, to bring it home to our listeners, could we have some practical examples of what bullying looks like? That's a bullying that encompasses these ingredients. These ingredients.
Yeah, of course. Okay, I think one, I can give you like different scenarios. We'll talk. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
So I can give an example of physical and social. So when we talk about physical, maybe one, let's say a bigger kid who is in maybe ninth grade or like high school here. So now they see a younger kid or maybe someone who's currently coming into school and they take the bus together. So what this person is, every time the person enters the bus, takes the backpack, trashes it on the floor, and everyone laughs, right? One, you're bigger than the person, you have a social power, which means you have other people who are cheering you on. So that perpetuates the act because one, there is imbalance of power, you're bigger than the person. Two, you is repeated because you do it every day on the bus. Three, it's repeated and it's unwanted, which means you're being aggressive to another person, and the person perpetrating the victim does not like it. So that's an example of physical bullying. You're taking the backpack, you're punching the person, you're hitting the person, making the person uncomfortable and more likely not to want to get on the bus next time.
Yeah.
Another instance of a social exclusion, which is more, so social bullying is more common in females, is let's say it's a group of girls, a group of friends who there was one who was among them before, and maybe like in the movie Mean Girls, they didn't like what the girl did, and all of a sudden they turn against her, they're making jest of her, they make comments, they go to where they eat, they're just making so many things. They're circulating text messages or social media or all those kind of pictures that are false. That is bullying too, because they continuously do it. There's an imbalance of power. There's population, which one they have social influence, but then there's also multitude, to maybe 3 or 4 girls versus one. So that whole imbalance and an act, that is bullying. And we have to understand it because it's not peer play. Because as a person, I don't like it. So that means I'm not comfortable with it. So it's not play, bullying.
Awesome, awesome. I really like the examples that you have given because they are real, they are practical. I'm sure even as a parent listen, if their children have ever reported a case to them, now they can actually see how it works. And when you talked about the social exclusion one, the one involving ladies, I totally understand that. I totally understand that because someone attempted to bully me in secondary school using that method. I'm serious.
Yeah, it was common. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so it actually, interestingly, what it did for me was it made me learn to be very strong and be my own person. So yes. And eventually, of course, apologies came, everything changed. But I recognize that even going forward into the future, it kind of made me to be my own person. I'm not one that if I'm not with a crowd, I can't function. I can function just by myself, So I don't need external motivation to do anything. I don't need a group of people. I'm just that, shall I say, motivated. But as much as I'm able to get the positives from what happened to me, I know that there are also negatives. Bullying affects children negatively. So could we just talk about how can bullying affect the children now in terms of as it's happening to them, in that moment it's happening to them and over that period, and then in the future, how do those things affect the kinds of adults they become? Do they now end up trolling people on social media because they had a bad experience? Please,
Yeah, so interesting. The interesting thing is that people always look at bullying from the victim perspective. They forget the bully and the bystanders. So studies have shown the victim, the bystanders, the bully. I mean, bystanders are those that are watching, but they may or may not do anything. All of them are affected. Because one, the victim is heavily affected. One, they usually don't want to go to school. They don't want to get on the bus. They have more missed school days, which means they're missing work. So they start to have lower grades because now they're not able to do work well. They're thinking about, what's going to happen when I get on the bus? So they're always very anxious of the environment. So it's affecting their daily life. Other things are more likely to present to their doctors or emergency room with physical symptoms that do not correlate. So every day on Thursday, they're having abdominal pain or belly pain or vomiting. Or maybe they're having headache on Thursdays. And Thursdays, why? Because that's the day they have gym. And that's the day that Joe bullies him. So it becomes a day where they don't want to go to school. And 3, they become more withdrawn. They stay by themselves. They don't want to communicate with anyone because they feel like no one understands what they're going through and no one understands what they're talking about. And the more likely they stay isolated, the more it starts coming to their mind to do dangerous things to themselves. So it affects their self-esteem because it makes them think, hey, Joe bullies me. There must be something wrong with me. And it becomes that cycle of thinking there's something wrong. So we have the physical, but also the physical and everything else can lead to the mental health effects where they start thinking, becoming depressed and anxious and self-harming, which is trying to hurt themselves to see would that make them feel better or just to bring out their anger, and even to extremes of suicide and actually dying. And that's what the victim. When it comes to the bully, most bullies or some bullies are actually asking for help. Because what we've noticed is that bullies can perpetrate things that happen in their house. So they're aggressive to a kid on the bus because mom, dad, or brother is aggressive to them. So the only way they can manifest their own power or think get control is by doing it to someone else on the bus. So it's not about thinking the victim has a problem. We also have to check back and say, why is this guy being a bully? Why is he always doing this? And maybe he has a problem. So become more aggressive. They're always in detention, which also affects their work, because they're trying to make up and show people I'm a bully, I can do this. They have a lot of anger in them. So they're not functioning properly too. So those are ways that victim and bullies can function. And even bystanders too. I mean, there's like a whole chart of bystanders, like different types of bystanders. But some bystanders have been noticed to be anxious too, because they're always wondering, oh, do I help? Do I not help? Do I have to watch? What do I do? Do I report? So it's just that cycle of like everyone worried about they're stepping on stones. Where do they land? So it's like they're not having a good functional cycle of being able to concentrate in school, on not wanting to go to school, or becoming depressed with so many mental health effects. So there's a long list.
Yes, awesome. I really like the way you have talked through this, and the fact that it's not just one person that is being affected, that there's a whole spectrum. And I can totally understand when you say some bullies are replicating what they have seen, because maybe they are helpless at home, but they just feel I have to do something to also show that I have things working for me. And so they're looking for who to transfer their aggression or their hurt or their sorrow to. And so thank you so much for explaining that. And then I also like the fact where you emphasize that the bystanders are also anxious, because maybe they want to help, but they're thinking, oh, if I help, would I be beaten also? Would I also be bullied? Or, they're also thinking of the power dynamics, and they're wondering, can I manage it?
Yes.
And this now leads to another question. How can the whole value chain, in this cycle, how can it be properly managed? Because I'm already seeing that just maybe if there was proper education to the bystander on steps to take, they know that they may not necessarily need to step into the situation physically, but they can take action by speaking to an adult who can do something. And then, of course, if maybe there are protective mechanisms where nobody would mention their names, it could also help them. So please, could you just share with us across the entire chain, the victim, the bystander, the bully, the parents, the teachers, then school management.
Yes.
And I also want to say even places of worship, because many of these children in children's church or children's mosque or whatever, in their own places of worship, there's an arm dedicated to children, and they may not experience bullying in school. It might be in a place of worship.
Yes.
Any other child care center. So what is the role of the different parties involved in reducing bullying in our society?
So I definitely like how you mentioned stakeholders, because people always think when it comes to bullying, they tell the child, go sort it out. We have to get that concept of, what do they call it? Man up to it, or go figure it out. It does not work when it comes to bullying. Everyone is different. I may be strong enough to speak up and tell the person bullying me, hey, stop, I'm not taking it today. But someone else may not be. And we're going to be responsible for that one child who was not figured out when they're younger. So it's like a whole chain of people. One, it has to do with starting with the parents. We have to understand what is bullying and what is not. What changes do we have to see in our kids to start suspecting there's something going on in school? Intervene. Only 40% of kids or less actually report they are being bullied. So kids may not even tell you being bullied. You have, and you see this based on changes that happen. So we as parents have to understand, why is my child changing? Why are they isolated? Why are they coming back with like torn clothes, torn backpacks? So when you see that, then you can ask questions. And then from asking questions, you can understand, so how can I help you? Who is doing this? I want you to make sure that you can tell me anything. I want you to make sure I'm here to help you. So that's how we as parents can start understanding. And when you also think about it from the victim perspective, when you have a child who is a bully, don't say, yes, my child he's the strongest one. No, your child is asking for help. So you have to also help your child who is a bully. So that's when it comes to parents. So with parents, understanding the definition of bullying and what to look for and how to ask for help. When it comes to your hospital setting or your doctor setting, let them tell you how you, because every day you're going to the doctor asking for help for mental and physical effects. Also ask them, where can you get more help? So because I believe every physician, pediatrician, or medical provider has to be able to help a parent, because some parents come in, oh, this is happening in school. Where do I start? because not every parent knows what to say to the school. So we have to help them say, so this is what you can say. This is what's happening to the child. These are ways you can help. So that's a provider has to come into place. And when he comes into school, so this does not happen at most schools, but it should. They should start talking about bullying from when kids are so much younger. Because one, when you talk about it and teach kids how to respect other people's emotions and feelings and differences, kids will understand their effects of bullying, because kids may not even know that bullying has some effect. They only see it as they start to get older. So, but if they have these conversations when they are younger, then they can know, oh, I'm not supposed to talk to this person this way. This does not feel good. So when they understand those, they're less like, not that they won't try, they're less likely to perpetrate these behaviors as they get older. And this is not something, oh, you talk about it on the first day of school on Monday and then that's done. No, it has to be part of the curriculum.
Yes.
It has to be a constant reminder. Kids need constant reminders. Hey, you're not going to bite Choma because Choma doesn't like it. Biting is not good. You say it again on a Monday, and then the next 2 weeks, you have to remind them. So it has to be part of the curriculum. And when it now comes towards like the principal or the rest of the head, they have to find a way to make reporting open, because if you penalize a child for reporting an act that they don't like, they will not come back to tell you again. They're like, oh, they told me they didn't do anything for me. They blame me for this situation. So why would I say it again? They will shut it down. They will never come to you again. So you have to find a way to have an open communication when it comes to reporting, but then have a way to sort the act out. Because one, you don't want to call the bully and say, hey, suspension because you did this. No, you have to understand why that's happening, because you never know what's happening in the bully's life too. So you want to sort it out, the victim separately with their family, the bully separately with their family, and talk about it those ways and find like a really structured way to solve it. So that's like the school setting. And then coming out to the churches and like the little groups of maybe there's like different nationality groups from the churches. You have different sessions and talk about this. We need to be talking about bullying. People don't want to talk about it. They're like, oh yeah, he's bigger than him. Let him go and fight for himself. No, it's not about fighting for yourself. It's about having a discussion for kids to understand that we are there to help them, and this is what should happen and what shouldn't happen. So it's like a whole range of people that need to get involved with this.
Awesome. I really love this. Like, I'm just so happy and excited about this conversation, because this is actually how these kinds of things can be properly done.
Mm-hmm.
The parents have this beautiful relationship, open communication with their children. When their children are going through rough patches, they won't feel too scared to talk about it, because they know that my parents would be there for me. You know, my parents they won't just make all those funny comments we make and dismiss it, you know. And then taking it to the school authority also. When the school has a system of managing it ensures that wrong behavior is addressed. But when people say they're just children, that's not. They would do with that thing and then they carry it into other areas of their life. So I really like the idea of talking about it early on and making it a constant part of what is being spoken of. So let's make every week some aspect of bullying is spoken about, and it goes through the entire academic session, so that everybody knows. There is that knowing that we are not supposed to act this way. And it's just the way, children watch certain things on TV over and over again, and then it begins to register in their minds. That's the same way we have to be intentional about registering anti-bullying behavior.
Exactly. Yes.
You also gave the perfect example of, places of worship and all these other associations that we belong to, and our children get to meet other children, and how these things must be talked about. I totally agree with you that we should stop ignoring the elephants in the room. We should talk about Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been such an enlightening session. I'm sure our listeners are so happy, and they're already taking notes on how they are going to implement.
I hope so. Yeah.
So you work in pediatric emergency medicine. Have there been cases that came to the hospital directly that you knew was, had a direct relationship with bullying? Have there been examples?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said before, some kids, or 30%, only less than 30% of kids tell their families they are being bullied. And some of the cases I've seen are maybe some kids are coming with injuries, a kid that got slammed to the floor, because this is an extreme case of bullying, because now it's getting more physical. They're being slammed to the floor and they ended up with a head injury that needed to come in. So that's an example, those with actual injuries. But I've also seen kids who, like I mentioned before, does not want to go. Mom said he does not want to go to the gym on Thursdays. I'm like, why? But because I heard this over and over again, I'm like, wait, can I talk to him alone? He's like, yeah, because there's Joe in the gym. I was like, okay, did you ever tell anyone? Well, I mentioned it to my coach and he told me to get over it. And that's it. I never said anything else. So those are the direct ways, like, because mom is like, every Thursday I'm taking him to the regular doctor. Every Thursday he starts vomiting. So those patterns are suspicious for something going on. So those are the direct ways bullying. Also kids maybe who have attempted suicide and then mom found out and brought them in and they're like, yes, because I cannot take the bullying anymore and no one is doing anything about it. So why am I here? I feel like I'm always targeted. I feel like I don't matter. So this is the best way for me to end it. So that's like the mental health aspect of seeing. I've had ones that mom is like, what? Wait, what? I have never heard this before. I'm like, yes, because we don't have that communication. So kids assume they have to fight for themselves. She's like, yeah, I have tried. I spoke with the teacher once and no one did anything. So this is like the best way for me to handle it. So I see it a lot.
So I've noticed something in the conversation we have had today, that it's always the mom finding out and bringing the child in. Can we say something to our fathers getting involved in bullying and not making those comments like man up and all those sort of stuff? Because it makes the children withdraw and not speak when they're supposed to speak. And if they actually speak when these things start, it's easier to nip it in the bud as opposed to just allowing them manage it by themselves. Can you just please say something to the fathers listening? Like, it's so important. Almost every time you're talking about something to do with, we keep talking about the mother did, the mother found, the mother. Where are our fathers? And that is not to say we don't have fathers who are involved, but it just seems like the majority of times we keep hearing it from the mom angle. Could you just encourage our fathers to get more involved?
I think, just to be fair, I feel like generally when it comes to medical care or taking kids, and I see most of the parents, even those that don't have to do with bullying, most of them come with their moms. So maybe it's more like they're like a joke where dad does not know what's happening today. Even when they come in and ask, oh, how old is this kid? Oh, let me call the mom. So it's like, so to be fair, I think it's one of that. So I'm not saying that dads are not always involved, but mostly a lot of moms come with their parents. But it's true. I also agree with you. Our dads have to understand too, because you're older and stronger, because you were bullied when you also a parent, or moms too, because you were bullied when you were younger and you got over it, does not mean your child has to go through the same thing. We know better now. If we let everything that happened to us when we were growing up happen again to our kids so they can learn, I don't think it's a fair situation or something fair enough for us to let slide that way. So it's not about manning up. Yes, you can teach your child like self-esteem, enroll them in classes where they can learn to build their confidence. But in this situation, when these things happen, you have to come out and say, hey, regardless of what happens with the bullying, I am here to help fight for you. So the fact that I'm teaching you to learn, build your self-esteem and confidence does not mean you should not tell me about the episodes happening in school, because I will be there to help fight for you too.
Awesome. I love it. I love it because this is just so apt. In as much as we are building them up, we must also let them know that when things actually go a certain way, they should feel free to talk, understanding that you are going to be there for them. I remember in a school some years ago, and a little girl mentioned something that had happened to her. And then I asked her, so what did you do? She said she told her mom. So what did your mom do? My mom didn't do anything. And I knew that if we keep on having that kind of a trend where you tell your parents something and they don't do anything, what you're communicating to that child is, don't bother telling me because I wouldn't do anything. And that's good enough. That means there are things that are more difficult happen to them. They are looking externally for who would help them, as opposed to coming to their parents, who are supposed to be their first source of support. So thank you so much for sharing that. And now we have to wrap up. But this is a really, really, really amazing session. Could you share with us your final words on this topic? And also, I know that our amazing listeners have enjoyed listening to you and would like to connect with you. What would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Of course, I think about the takeaway topics will be one, bullying did not start today. It's always existed. But now I think us thinking about like social media and everyone being connected, it just does not happen in school anymore. Kids get home and social media and Facebook, they keep messaging them in different places. So we have to understand that it's taking a different level up to the level of cyberbullying. And we have to have these conversations with our kids even before they get to school. Like ask them today, how are you doing in school? Does anyone or anything bother you? Don't say, are you being bullied? They will tell you straight up no, because no kid wants to say, oh yes, I am the weak one. They're not being weak, but that's what they perceive it as. So ask them, does anyone make you uncomfortable? How do you do when you get on the bus? Ask them today, have those conversations. And two, when you find out what's happening, don't go as a fight to the other kiddo. You're not sure what's happening in school. Go to either your doctor or to the school or the teacher and say, hey, my child is being made uncomfortable by this person. How do we resolve it? Or even the bus driver. How do we resolve this? I'm not going there to fight the other kid because I know that's a child. There may be a parent or like a whole community behind them who may not be stable enough. So you want to say, oh, can you mediate and find out what's happening with this child? But of course, if it continues and you're not getting any result for the school, then you keep stepping up. Either you're going to the superintendent, to the legal or anything like that. Don't stop because the school didn't do anything. So find like means to keep going up and up. And three, always have a open communication with your child. Don't say, I'll be there for you when you and then you close the door when they do anything. Always have the open communication. It's very important. It's good to help them today so they can come back to you tomorrow.
Awesome. This has been an amazing episode on bullying and the effects on children. And I really love how you emphasize that we should teach them that when they report about something, it doesn't make them weak, because I think that's the thing that would make children not want to report. They don't want to be termed a CC,
Exactly.
So we have to encourage them. And then I also love how you emphasize that the fight is, don't go and fight the child. The issue is not, you're not supposed to go and fight the child, because that's adult to child, right? Instead, go to certain authority. And when you go to an authority and you don't get the kind of response you want, you take it up. You don't just say,
don't give up.
You take it up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been nice chatting with you too. I am on Instagram, as you can put the details in your show notes, as Dr. N Orajiaka. That's both Instagram and Twitter. It's from Active More.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
As we always say on this show, like we always remind you, please ensure that as you listen to this conversation, it's not enough to just listen and go. Ask yourself, what are you practically taking out? What are you going to begin to implement right away? And how can you also ensure that someone else knows about what you have just learned? How about sharing the information you have just learned, maybe on a post on social media, or sharing this podcast with some other person, but just basically making sure that people within your sphere of influence are also as informed. This is important because the action or inaction of others can actually affect us. So don't say, oh, it's not my business, so I don't want to see public. You've got to be willing to share the knowledge you are learning with other people. So thank you all so much for joining in and listening in. See you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening in on this episode of Safety Moments with the Safety Chic. I hope it's been a good one for you. Feel free to leave a review, and if you'd love to get information on when the next episode drops, join our Telegram channel at t.me/thesafetychic. Chic without a K, just CHIC. So t.me/thesafetychic.